Hello, my beautiful friends and fellow space blobs. We are going to be talking about a full moon that really is just a full moon after my own heart. I love Piscean energy. I love Virgo season. I love this little tip over point between August and September. And this moon has all of those ingredients, plus this really beautiful, luscious, expansive energy. It is the full moon we need right now. And I love when I get to go into these really intuitive spiritual places that take us out of the mundane and take us to a beautiful place. But then when we get there, we're able to bring back some of that wisdom and magic and beauty and fill our mundane with it. Because the mundane really is where the magic happens, but only when we've allowed ourselves the connection to our intuition and our expansiveness. And this Pisces full moon gives us that in buckets. So let's get into the conversation about this beautiful full moon in Pisces. We are going to be riding the beautiful waves of this harvest moon in Pisces around August 30th and into the 31st. It's happening at 7 degrees of Pisces. So the sun will be at 7 degrees of Virgo, creating that opposition and that beautiful full super moon. Very luscious. If you get the chance, this would be a great moon to go out and watch rise and feel some feelings and just let it all out. This full moon is our final full moon of Venus retrograde. It's happening just a few days before Venus stations direct. So it's situated in this really beautiful sacred spot of completing a journey and coming to full understanding of something that has moved through you during that Venus retrograde. A really great time to feel feelings around anything that has occurred during that beautiful, soulful, spiritual transit. This is also the full moon of Mercury retrograde. So this full moon is going to be illuminating what we're already starting to play with Mercury retrograde, which will be about a week into its journey in Virgo. And this is our first full moon right after Uranus has just moved retrograde. Another time, another season of integrating how we have changed and how we have grown. So you can kind of see how this full moon holds a really beautiful sacred doorway energy between not only August and September and kind of the entering into a deeper, more spiritual time of the year, but also how it's holding space for us to process the bigger ways we have changed in our lives this year so far. I have a few themes that came up for me when I was thinking about this full moon, because I also didn't mention that this full moon is sitting very close to Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is at 3 degrees, so it's not perfectly conjunct this full moon. However, it is there, and they are in quite a beautiful conversation. If you haven't connected with Saturn and Pisces yet, this energy is so much about connecting our physical and spiritual, about helping us balance those things so that we can learn how to be here in the world in a way that feels supportive and loving, and to help us work through some of those places where maybe we feel it is difficult to be here. It's also about bringing more of our dream life into the world, more of our soul, more of our spirit, and how that's actually a very mature and responsible thing to do, because when we're moving from a deep sense of soul, we tend to do, as humans, we tend to care for others more lovingly. We tend to make choices that are a little bit more fulfilling and kind to everyone around us. So let's get into the themes of this full moon. There's just so much to cover here in this rich full moon. First, we have that because this full moon is happening right as Venus retrograde is about to finish up, this is about releasing some pent-up emotions. If you have been letting emotions build this year, I know I have, and you have been feeling some tightness or something that hasn't had a chance to move as emotions are meant to do, this is a great full moon to let those emotions move. And I know that can kind of be a strange thing to be planning an evening or a day where you maybe let an emotion move through. You don't have to do that. Obviously, sometimes it just happens naturally, but sometimes it's really nice to set aside a moment to to just say, you know, I'm going to let myself feel the sadness that's been lurking in the background, or I'm going to let myself feel the frustration or anger. I'm going to let myself feel the uncertainty, whatever emotion has been building up for you. This is a full moon. This is one of the best full moons of the year for letting emotions move. It's Pisces. It's a Pisces full moon. And what better time to do that than now? And this is really a beautiful time as you're feeling those emotions to look around you and notice what is there with you as you are feeling. I'm going to be doing a whole activation about this over on my Patreon, where we can kind of just dive a little deeper on that theme and that feeling. Theme 2 kind of goes back to what I was saying about Uranus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, all of this. This is honoring yourself and how you have changed, taking the time to honor the growth and the change. I think sometimes we always come up with our next goal. We always come up with the next thing we need to become, the next thing we need to embody, the next goal. And it's never enough, right? Like no matter how much we've grown and learned and become something beautiful in our lives, we're always kind of setting our next goalpost. This full moon is about honoring, just honoring what you've moved through. Get honest about it. Write it down. Make it something special, you know, just noticing that maybe, you know, a certain walk or commute used to stress you out a lot, and now you found your rhythm with it. Maybe that, you know, you used to feel really overwhelming to move your body, and now, you know, you do a little bit of stretching for 5 minutes a day. Those are huge things, and it doesn't always have to be about accomplishments either. It can also just be about honoring everything we moved through, including difficulties, scared times that have felt like they have stripped kind of one part of our personality away, or one way of viewing ourselves. That might also be something you're working through this year, and it's okay to honor that that's happened as well. And just honor that. Not to have accomplished anything, not to have improved yourself, none of that. Just honoring how you have changed, what you have moved through. The next theme. This, like I mentioned, this full moon is closely aligned with Saturn, and which is also going through a retrograde right now. And this is a bridge moon between your dreams and your physical world, right? This is Virgo season with the Pisces full moon, Saturn involved here. How do we create bridges between our physical selves, our mundane selves, the self that gets up and does the dishes and cooks breakfast and what have you, and the self that is connected to like nonlinear time, dreams, hope, and kind of intuitive wisdom? How do we start to create a deeper connection between these two? Because that's a really crucial thing in life, I think, is finding ways for these two aspects of ourselves to feel that they can be in communion. This is a great time. I like to have conversations where I let each aspect of myself have something to be said, put it on the journal, put it on the page, see what comes out. How do these two actually have a lot in common? How would they like to really work together a little bit more and maybe more consistently so that you feel more connected between your mundane and soul self? Because they are one and the same, and yet a lot of times it'll feel like they are at odds, or like they want totally different things from ourselves. But as soon as we allow them to start interweaving, by journaling, by letting them flow freely, by realizing what each of them is valuing, we'll often find that we are more connected than we realized. The final theme for this Pisces full moon is that with Saturn's influence here, we are also thinking about how when we're dreaming, when we are connecting with the dream self, it means that a lot of times our mundane self, the self that maybe is a little bit attached to certain circumstances, familiarity, may have to move outside of those comfort zones in order for dreams to move through. So this is also a full moon for expanding. Just holding a little bit more space for us to be able to hold new visions. I think that this is something, it's kind of like going to the gym. It's kind of like any kind of practice you do. It's like, do we even let ourselves hold the visions for long enough to let them start to percolate into our physical world? This is a full moon that you can really explore, expanding your comfort with holding that bigger vision, holding that different vision, even just something different than maybe any of your family before you has done, anybody in your immediate surroundings has done, maybe anything you've ever thought of doing before. You know, it takes practice to hold those visions, and they don't always have to be, you know, like world shattering visions, right? Like a bigger vision could just be living in a different type of environment. A different vision could be having a slightly different work schedule or a different career. You know, holding visions can look like a lot of different things, but it will mean expanding past our comfort zones. And that's where Saturn comes in. Saturn's always like, here's all these beautiful things that are possible to embody and move through, but let's see what happens when we don't just hold on to the most familiar patterns that we have. I know they're comfortable. I know they may not feel the greatest all the time, but they're comfortable and you like them. What happens when we leave them behind? So that's our final theme for this full moon. That's plenty to work with. I mean, I think I covered 4 different topics that you could honestly spend just your energy on one of those. And maybe there will be one that really, really speaks to you and that feels a little bit more closely aligned to with where you are. I always recommend with full moons and new moons and all of this, you know, just doing what feels good for you, following your own intuitive guidance on this. You don't need to be doing a whole bunch of extra homework just because it's a beautiful Pisces full moon. I mean, I would love to just have a relaxed time, have a good cry on my sofa, do a little bit of journaling, go to bed early and call it a night. That sounds amazing to me. And I'm sure all of you will have your own ways of expressing yourself during this beautiful full moon. If you would like some guidance though, I am going to be doing a little visualization, a little practice over on my Patreon for this full moon that is going to be all about checking in with those feelings that are sitting in our bodies, feeling them, and then also checking in with some core values that are starting to percolate through and how we can invite those more into our bodies so that our physical intuition is more connected to our spiritual intuition as well, and how these two can really work together. So a way to build bridges between these aspects of ourselves so that we can kind of get a little bit more clarity. There is a lot of clarity in this full moon. And I know a lot of times Pisces, people say it's about feeling confused or disillusioned or kind of like diffuse, I guess is more the word, not disillusioned, diffuse. But I think that Pisces energy can be some of the most clarifying and relieving once we let ourselves feel. So yeah, I hope to see you over on Patreon. We are also finishing up our Venus retrograde over there, and you can binge watch that whole series and enjoy all the materials I've created there at any time. So I'd love to see you. You can also find me here, of course. I love it every time you subscribe and like and hang out with me. It really helps me to keep doing this work. I know I say it all the time, but it's so true, and it's so amazing to get to share the journey with you all. And you can also find me on Instagram. Sometimes I post some pretty amazing things on there. No, I'm just kidding. I do like to post really reflective things on there, things that maybe I'm moving through, and share that vulnerability with you. So if you want to see a little bit more of that, you might check that out. And I will see you for our next chat. Have a beautiful full moon in Pisces. And yeah, we'll be seeing you around here, I hope, very soon.